What you listening to, son?
I don't think you like it.
Well, why not? I like this new generation of music.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Everything is Everything podcast, where we discuss the idea that every topic is related if you take the right steps. As always, please make sure to like if you like or don't if you don't. Also, leave comments on what topics we should try to connect in our future podcasts.
Can't wait for this one. This is going to be a good one, Chris.
Yeah, this is going to be fire.
It's going to be a good one.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the pod. I'm Chris. This is Christian.
What up? Honestly, if I could call this chapter of my life, if I could give it a title, give it a name, I would definitely call it finding purpose or something, or finding motivation. And the reason I say that is because through this year, or my last year of high school, I've really developed myself and matured myself and learned how to put myself in different spaces to grow.
How'd you do that?
So really, it was because, number one, my motivation to do things. So because I was so motivated to start my brand, go to the gym, I've found myself connecting with different people on how to elevate myself. You know what I mean? So I was really worried about the journey. So that finding purpose, finding motivation was really the chapter name, because I was so determined.
So I'm guessing that you've become a whole different person from when you even wanted to start this brand, right?
Absolutely, I agree.
So what would you say maybe some of the challenges have been in your journey that you've been through?
I think definitely getting started.
You think that was one of the
that was
hardest
probably
parts?
the toughest point
Really?
Because honestly, when you step into starting a clothing brand, it was new to me. I didn't know anything about it. I was just putting my feet in the water, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do it. And I put my mind to it. I just had to look things up for myself, keep reevaluating, keep looking at things, and just trying to start fresh. And it's always a challenge when you start something from nothing at all. So for me, it was just about, how can I do things differently? How can I get better? That was really my mindset.
Yeah, I think the challenge is something that people view very differently. There's a lot of people in the world, right?
Absolutely.
And they all have a different idea of what a challenge is. And not only do they have a different idea of what the challenge is, they have a different perception on how to deal with said challenge.
Absolutely.
So, I think one of the biggest things is that to change your view of what a challenge should be handled like, So I think, for example, there is chess. We're playing chess. There's a good move, there's a best move, and there's a not so good move.
Right. There's a bad move.
There's a bad move.
Right.
Right. So it's all about thinking about taking your time. Okay, what's my best move? When you take that best move, you'll be in a better position than when you take that bad move, obviously. Right?
Obviously, yeah.
But the problem is not everybody will take the time to think about which move might be best. Maybe they didn't think about losing their queen on this move here, Better person.
Right, absolutely.
At the end of that. Because,
Absolutely.
Okay, so you run into a grizzly bear in the wild. Okay, now I know better about grizzly bears.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I didn't know anything about grizzly bears before. Now I walk out in the wild, I see a grizzly bear, I know better about grizzly bears. Maybe I get mauled by a grizzly bear. I know what not to do.
Right.
Obviously it's not about going out there and getting mauled by a grizzly bear. It's more about just everyday challenges.
Right.
What about you, man? That's a good question,
To me,
by the way.
honestly, I think it's perfectly what you said, because when you encounter challenges, some people will run away and some people choose to take them head on. So I think it's really, challenges affects your character. And to give a solid definition to it, it's what makes you better at the end of the day. Challenges can take you down. They can bring you up. It's just about how you view it. And when we talk about perception, when we talk about mentality, when we talk about attitude, we talk about character, all of this stuff affects you, because when you, let's say, what's a challenge that we encounter every day? Let's just say
Something simple.
Let's just say not having money, right?
Sure. You're broke.
We'll take that. Let's just say you need to get some money. You got to go get gas for your car, right? That's a challenge. You can't go nowhere without gas in your car. Now, what are you going to do? See, some people just sit in the house all day. I can't do that. I got things to do. So for me, it's like, okay, what am I gonna do to go put gas in my car? Maybe I'll go knock on people's door and ask, hey, do you need a car wash? Hey, can I mow your lawn? Can I rake your leaves for something? Just anything to get you going, right? Because some people, they fear challenges. They don't want to do anything that has to make their day more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, I remember when we didn't have no money, years ago, we used to go around my neighborhood and shovel driveways all the time.
All the time.
And we walked over to the rich people, and they were like, oh, no, we got contractors, and we can't do this now. But we still walked all the way over there with our shovels.
All the way over there. We walked all the way back.
on practically every house. We must have. But at the end of the day, yeah, we were just trying to get some money. And that reminds me of something when you were talking about how, you're only basically one decision away from getting your life better. Mm-hmm. There's this thing called string theory. There's this theory called string theory. And it's basically that in any situation, there is an opposite reality in which you made the opposite decision. And there was an opposite outcome, right? Because of that. So... And that's interesting to think about but not good to dwell on, I believe. It's interesting to think about, maybe take some time from your day, but it's not good to dwell on because at the end of the day, you make the decisions you make, and it's meant to be whatever happens. Whatever happens is meant to happen, I believe.
Absolutely.
And whether that be good things, whether that be bad things, I think they all bring you closer to where you want to be as a person.
Right. Honestly, let's just say we were talking about attitude and mentality, right? Well, attitude and mentality, there's so many different perspectives and different ways you could view a mentality. Some people view mentality as, some people see their lives as negative. They don't see many positive things in their life. So they view mentality as mentality could be something negative for them. But whereas me and you, we see mentality a completely different way than someone else. Like, we could see it completely different than how somebody else sees it.
Because of the fact that we have more information on mentality, right? And
because
the thing
we
is,
speak on it.
Exactly.
We've been talking about mentality for years, since middle school. We've been talking about attitude and how to come at things with a positive mindset and no matter what, not letting things set you back. So we've been talking about this for years. So, but somebody else could just see mentality as
maybe even somebody younger. They don't have the experience, and people around them don't even understand it. They want to get into understanding how to be successful, how to have a successful mental state, but nobody around them wants to, right? But that's exactly what I mean. By the more you broaden it, the more likely you are to be correct. Because we have more experiences with mentality, we could talk about it more in depth than somebody that doesn't.
Right. And I like what you said when you said successful. I forgot what you said. It's like successful mindset or something like that. And my question to you is, for somebody who doesn't have a successful mindset, how do they find people or find connections to put them in that successful mind space? How do they put themselves into that kind of, perspective?
Well, honestly, it's all about just looking around and seeing everybody else around you, and it's almost like this world is a dystopian society. Everyone goes to school, go to school, work hard, get a degree,
right, go get a job,
go to college, get a job,
right,
work a 9 to 5. And if you really think about history throughout history, I mean, the school system was made by John D. Rockefeller, right? And that's a billionaire who owns major oil companies and, trust funds and insurance companies and things like that. And he literally said, and there's like one of his memorandums or whatever, it literally said that he doesn't want a country of learners. He wants a country of workers. He doesn't want somebody to get in that mindset where they think about things like being better or elevating. They want people to work for them, and they want the people that figure that out on their own. They can be successful. But
the others,
but everybody else that doesn't understand that they're being led, we want them to be workers.
right,
That's how they weed out the different people.
right.
And it's you can look all this stuff up. It's actually crazy. So, but to answer your question, I think it's all about just sitting there and looking at life around you and asking if it really fits the narrative that you want for your own life.
I think, honestly, to answer my own question, I think it starts with you. It starts with
Absolutely.
it starts with what kind of person you want to be. Because if you want to be the regular 9-to-5 worker, you just works all day, every day, and that's perfectly fine too. Because that's basically what I do right now. I go to school, I do my whatever extracurriculars, do my sports, and I just go work. I just go grind, go get money.
And you don't say nothing about it.
I don't say nothing about it. That's
on
just
your
my
grind and that's
mindset.
that.
I find time for the gym. I find time for things, but that's because I'm so determined. I'm hustling. I'm trying to find out
You got a
different.
vision.
I have a vision, but I'm trying to find out different ways where I can bring in profit for myself. Whether that's go detail cars, whether that's go rake the lawns in somebody else's backyard. No matter what, you have to find different ways to prosper yourself. And by doing all these different things, you make different types of connections. Like I could bring up somebody, I could bring up Gabe. I could use Gabe as an example. He's cutting hair.
Yeah,
He's making connections with different people just by cutting hair. Hey, you want a haircut for $10? Now your foot is in the door. You got somebody. $10. Man, I'll give you $25. Like, here.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
then he's
offering,
making-
because you're offering a service to somebody. See, when you're more beneficial in offering a service to somebody, your like list just went up by 10%. It just went up like 10 times, bro. Because you're offering a service to somebody that they never had or is available to them.
And that's what selling's really about, you know? It's knowing, it's giving somebody what they already want. Right? So they come in, they want, for example, I'll use somebody that goes into an instrument store. They walk into an instrument store. Why do they walk into an instrument store? Because they want an instrument. Right? They want an instrument.
I want that guitar right there, man.
Yeah. Oh, welcome to the store. Oh, you want a guitar, sir? Oh, yeah, look at our selection of guitars, you know? And they're looking at the guitars. Oh, play it. It sounds awesome, doesn't it? Sounds amazing. Go ahead. Oh, he tries it. Oh, man, yeah, this is a good sounding guitar. Man, I think it's so much better. Isn't it great that none of these strings are missing? Isn't that great? Just think about that for a second. But just stupid. I'm not saying that would necessarily work, but I think that's the general idea from what I've learned, and I've read a lot about selling. I've known a lot of people that sell things, and I've done a lot of observing of those people that sell things.
I think that's the biggest part is when you watch and you get to see people do it in person. I think it's way better than even like watching YouTube tutorials or anything, because you have to understand body language. You have to understand the room. You have to understand the people you're talking to. You have to understand the demographics behind it. There's so many different things when it comes to interacting with people. Because number one, sometimes you know the story, but sometimes you don't know the story. So when you go into a room, let's say there's 100 people in a room, and you have to sell to one person. You don't know any of these people, but you have to get this point across to one person. So how are you going to get that point across? You don't know any of them. You don't know where they're from, what they like what do they do. You don't know nothing about them. So you have to understand, okay, I'm in a room full of real estate people for you.
Sure.
So you can observe, because you're better at real estate than I am, because I don't know anything really. So you can walk into a room and be like, I'm going to sell to him. He looks like somebody that I could grab.
Yeah, I want to get to that point, and I think that that's a really great point. Keep talking a little bit. Actually,
so anyway, so like,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you good. Because honestly, observing the room is like the biggest thing you could do. Because if you just walked in and you said, "Yo, I'm here to sell this, and this," people will look at you. All right, so what are you selling? Whereas if you walked up, you started to engage somebody, you started to have conversation with them. You're like, hey, what are you here for? What are you looking to sell? What kind of properties are you looking to purchase? What kind of properties are you looking to sell? What are you into? And then you start talking. Well, you're like, I like this, and you start engaging them. You start that little chit chat, that conversation. Now you guys are going.
That is I'm so glad you brought it there because it literally, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. This is where everything came from. This is where the name Everything is Everything came from. Because one day I told Ryan that people would be more trusting of you if you don't come out right away immediately and sit there and say, I'm selling this. Can you buy this? If you start with something completely unrelated, and yeah, it sucks. Do you want to talk about the weather? Not really. I try to get past that stage as fast as possible. You know, you might be able to start there, something easy to start. Oh, yeah, it's great weather. You know, oh, did you see, how about this air, the Canadian wildfires, you know, like that stuff? You know, but I want to get past that stage as fast as possible because I don't like staying there. But the deeper into conversation you get, the more they trust you. It's parallel.
Right.
That
Absolutely.
relationship. It's parallel. So the more they trust you, the more likely they are to buy something off of you, because why would they buy something off of somebody else?
I thought of the perfect example for that. And for me, a job interview, it's literally the perfect setting for building conversation, because you could walk in there, the person who's employing you, they probably run through 100 employees in a day. Let's just say 100 employees a day for this one position. So they're like, you know, why are you interested in this job? The person goes, blah, 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 blah. Next. Why are you interested in this job? Blah, 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 blah. Next. All right, you. What makes you different from the other 99 people in this that I just sat in this seat? And then you give them, number one, you say why you want the job, obviously. But if you could find, let's just say they had a picture frame on the wall, or they had a Bible. Let's just say I was religious, right? So you ask them, oh, I see you have a Bible on your desk. Are you religious? This, and this. So you can start a conversation based off of that. Boom. You got your foot in the door, right? All right.
That's interesting.
You build a little conversation, right? All right, now you guys are talking. You're building some sort of connection, right? You see another picture. Oh, I see you have wife and kids. How old is your daughter? This, and this. Boom, he starts talking about his family. He can go on forever long about that. No, I don't care. I just want a job.
Dude, that is so interesting. I think talking to people is 100% psychology. But not the psychology that we learned in high school.
No. Definitely not that.
Right?
Definitely not
Dude,
that.
no. Think about that. Let's talk about that for a second,
Go
bro.
ahead.
The human psychology that you need to sell something is probably the most important psychology that you need to understand.
Definitely.
If you want to make money, right?
Absolutely.
It's probably the most important one to understand.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, why is it that the only things that we learn in high school is, at least what I learned in psychology, was the parts of the brain? I learned nothing about talking to nobody. I learned how to get accurate data sets, which is important, sure. Is it psychology? No, it's not even psychology.
I think you have to understand how the brain works. Yes, that's important. But
Sure.
I think the more important aspect is learning how to have
How to
use it and how to have intellectual dialogue.
Intellectual
dialogue. I mean, because the psychological aspect is, sure, you could have a conversation with somebody. Anybody can we're having a conversation right now.
For sure.
Anybody can have a conversation. I could just go up to somebody and start talking to them, and it wouldn't matter. We would just walk away with nothing. But if you talk about something like in the job interview, we talked about 2 to 3 things that he's going to remember. So I'm more likely to be remembered by him than the other 99 because we had something to connect to. It doesn't mean that we know each other, but we now have something to talk about, and he's more likely to come back and be like, hey, let's have a second interview. Or I want you to come in so I can have another conversation with you. Because once you leave somebody with something to remember, it's gonna stick in their brain just for a little bit.
That's so interesting. The fact that you said intellectual dialogue reminded me of something that it's actually something that I've noticed, you know, and it's the smarter the person is that you're talking to. If you have a conversation for a length of time, I swear your head will actually hurt.
It does.
Your head will like literally hurt because like somebody's like just so smart and you're trying to understand what he's saying, and it's
Absolutely.
like, but the more you do it, the more you're able to have these intellectual conversations with them. And it all goes back to how you deal with challenges, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's challenging to have an intellectual conversation with somebody that might be considered, you know, quote unquote, smarter than you. We already talked about how there's no real smarter or dumber than somebody else because there's different metrics of intelligence, right?
Absolutely.
But when you have a conversation with somebody that you might consider smarter than yourself, your head might actually begin to hurt when you're having that conversation because you're trying to understand so much new information.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you do it, like I said, the more you're able to have those intellectual
And I
conversations.
think that's the importance of talking to different people and having different types of conversations, because you can have the same types of conversations with people, but when you have different types of conversations and you talk to different demographics of people, it opens your mind up to new things. Because if you're just receiving the same information, all you know is that information that you're hearing. But once you hear something different, you're like, wow, I want to learn more about that. And that's a segue to, there's a man by the name of Emmanuel Acho. He was a football player, and he's currently an NFL analyst. But he has a YouTube channel called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And I want you to watch it because some of the stuff that he talks about is like, it really will open your mind. Like he talks about like current situations that are happening, and he talks about like a whole different array of things with different demographics. So he has so the death of Tyre Nichols, the man that was brutally beat up by like 5 black officers. Did you hear about that?
No.
Now look at look it up. So he talks about that, and he talks with like black cops, and then he'll have like different conversations with like white cops. So like it's a whole different array of like different conversations. And when you watch them, you're really like, wow, this is crazy. Like, so I want you to go watch like a couple episodes, because like some of the stuff that he talks about, and like it's just having different perspectives.
Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to watch
it.
that.
Anybody out there, I want you to go watch that. I'm telling you, it's really some good content. It's really great content.
That's super interesting, actually. When I was getting the camera for this podcast, I was at the store, and I met this guy who's doing a podcast, kind of the same thing. It's called Needed Conversations, and he films over in Trenton. He does live podcasts, and he does all these things.
Oh, that's fine.
And he just basically has conversations with people that are less fortunate than a lot of people, and gives them a voice, right? But it all comes down to the moral dilemma of, is there an objectively good and objectively bad thing? Like, does utilitarianism exist? You know? Do you think there's objectively good and objectively bad?
I think everybody, when we say objectively good and objectively bad, I think everybody in their own state wants to do good, right? I think we're all, at heart, I think everybody wants to be a good person.
Yeah, but everyone has their own definition, right?
But good technically does have its own definition.
So would you say that maybe there are some objectively true things, I guess is the best way to say. There are some objectively true things, like this table's on the ground.
All right.
But the thing is this, the Tao Te Ching, which is like one of the most, like, apparently the wisest books of all time. It's like 81 lines long, and a lot of people say it's the most wise book of all time. It says that anything that can be named is not true, because there's no way to say whether or not this is called a table or a mesa in Spanish or whatever it is in French and whatever it is in other languages, which one is correct, or maybe none of them are correct. Maybe it's a combination of all of them, and it's just the longest name of all time.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the most interesting things, to read these old religious texts and to see what they teach you as well. And I was just talking to my boy Matt about this yesterday, how each religion teaches a different aspect of the same thing, and how everyone wants to be objectively good, like we were just talking about.
Absolutely.
Everyone wants to be objectively good, but everyone learns what good is from a different path.
Right.
They're socialized in a different way, in a different place with different people. They don't have the same experiences.
Right.
Experiences mixed with your personality is your habitus, or how you perceive things, how
Right.
you really feel about them.
And I think good has a lot of definitions to it because it can be viewed so differently. Everybody has their own way of seeing what's good for their life and what's good to do. But not everybody can say that their good is the same version as somebody else's good. Just like somebody else's bad is not the same as my bad. I could do something bad and then people be like, oh, that's not even bad at all. And then they go name something that's completely worse than what I did. I'm like, so did I do what I did was good? So you can really question it in so many different ways as what's good and what's bad, because ultimately, like in a very obvious state, we know what good things are.
Yeah.
Like we can name things that are good. We can say that certain foods are good and certain foods are bad. We could say certain things are good to put in our bodies and certain things are bad to put in our bodies. But somebody can be like, why is that bad for you? I've been having this for so long and look at my current state. I'm still fine. Whereas if somebody consumes that thing, it's like, this is terrible for you. So like there's so many different ways to have good and bad.
Yeah, and I think that utilitarianism is one of the biggest,
Hold on, before you go, I want you to describe what that is to people who don't know what that word means.
Utilitarianism?
Yeah,
Sure,
I want you to describe that.
So utilitarianism is essentially the idea that there is an objectively good and an objectively bad thing to do. Moral and immoral. It totally exists, and there's an objective truth about it. Meaning no discussion, there is a good thing and there's a bad thing to do in any given situation, right? Mm-hmm. Or even in general. So, but that is one of the biggest cornerstones of politics there is, and I don't like to get political, so I'm not going to talk about my beliefs.
We don't get political.
We're not going to talk about my beliefs. But I'm simply going to say from an outsider how the psychology and utilitarianism works in politics. So essentially, everybody has their own perception about what's the objectively right and the objectively wrong thing to do in a political discussion. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, Republicans think that what's best for the most capable is best. Mm. And Democrats believe that what's best for the most amount of people is the moral thing to do. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So they both have different, very slightly different beliefs on what's moral and what's immoral. Mm-hmm. And I think it also comes down to Machiavellianism, I guess, whatever it's called, Machiavelli's beliefs, which were basically that the ends justify the means, right?
Okay.
So a lot of political leaders believe in Machiavelli's beliefs because that's how they got in power, really. Right. You're like, oh, well, I think I know what's best for the country, or this province, this blah, 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 this whatever. So I'm going to step on as many people as I need to. I'm going to kill as many people as I need to get into power. So they believe that the ends justify the means. And I think that's a very dangerous belief because of how much power you can get from that.
And I think a lot of it, most of, I'm just going to say it, most of politics is just opinion based. Everything really is just, but we're not going to get into politics, okay? I'm just saying everything is opinionated.
The fact that we could talk about politics without spewing our beliefs,
I know.
We just
we
say
just,
it like
the
it
word
is.
we say, when we say politics, everybody's ears just perk up.
Everybody's like, the Democrats or the Republicans.
We getting ready to talk about politics. I'm on the edge of my chair
That's
now.
That's what I hate about politics, bro.
But just to say, like, a lot of it is opinionated. I think everybody, even in America or just in the country, thinks that they know what's best for the country.
Everyone.
Everyone's like,
everyone had this, then this would happen.
Everyone has an idea of what is best for the country, best for the state, best for their city, best in general, right? And I think that's because when you look at demographics, when you look at the demographic of a city, right? If the city all came together, right, and they were like, what do we need? What do we need to do to make our city better? Some people would be like, all right, we need to build infrastructure. We need to build more housing. We need to fix the water issue. We need to, have more health care, cut the taxes or whatever. There would be so many different things. But if they were like, all right, we need to pick one thing to help turn our city around. The amount of I don't think you.
Everybody's got something to say.
Everybody has something different to say, and that's because number one, you take experience into it. What if they've been experiencing in their household, in their life? What is their family have been experiencing? You take experience, right? Now you take challenges. Now you take attitude. You take mentality. You take all of this different stuff, and you combine it into one person. So now they're saying
so complex.
It's very complex because you don't know what somebody's experiencing in their life. Like, you can't tell me what I'm experiencing. I can't tell you what you're experiencing.
Because we don't know anything about that, really.
We don't know. So how are we all going to come together to change our experience as a whole? Like, how do we do that?
That's another thing. I think that I'm glad you brought that point up, too, because that reminds me of, the point that we talked about in the first podcast where it was just me and you. Each person, I would say, generally, only experiences, I would probably imagine, 0% of the experiences that another person has had, right?
Absolutely.
So if I'm hanging with you,
right?
We've been friends for a long time, since middle school, long time,
middle school,
and we've hung out many times.
Absolutely.
We've gone to the courts, played basketball,
skateboarding, bike riding, whatever you want,
whatever you want to
call it,
football fields. But at the same time, you also have tons and tons of other experiences. I have tons and tons of other experiences, and they're completely different. Mm-hmm. And this is what I want everybody to understand. And this took me forever to understand. I look up things. I had to watch videos. I had to read books. Things like that. And there's this thing called the habitus, and it's basically your perception of the world. That's what it is. Mm. And the equation for your habitus is, and I mentioned this earlier in this podcast, but the equation for the habitus is the experience that you've had plus your personality. Okay. Is how you view any given situation. Mm. Right? So, yeah, right. Oh, my dad was, an alcoholic. Oh, your dad, abused you. He was probably an alcoholic too. And I'm not saying that's true because neither one of my parents drink. But I'm just using that as an example, of what someone that has an alcoholic father might think of another form of abusive father, right. Okay. And that's simply because of the experiences that person has had. Right. And it's incredibly important to remember that. And my mom is one of the wisest people that I've ever met, I love her to death, and she's so smart.
There's nothing like motherly wisdom.
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. And what she says is that most people are good, and so I always assume that somebody was doing. I always assume that somebody wasn't trying to hurt me. I always assume that their intention wasn't bad, because I'd rather be correct 99% of the time in thinking that they weren't trying to hurt me, and wrong 1% of the time, than wrong 99% of the time thinking that they were trying to hurt me, and right 1% of the time. Right. I would rather assume that they were being good-hearted, because they probably were, and even then, like 99% of the time, you won't even find out what their intentions were, especially like things like on the road, like road rage. I never use my horn, ever. I think it's stupid. Why would you use your horn? Unless in dire situations, like somebody's about to run into you and they don't see you, that's a necessity. Right. It's totally different. Mm. But I never use my horn. Mm-hmm. I don't argue with strangers. I don't care to argue with strangers. Right. If you think that I'm wrong, and you tell me, okay, we don't have to talk about it. Right. If you think that if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it. Right. I could change the subject. I could leave. I could let you go on with your business. We talk about it, because I'm a communicator. Like, right. I want you to tell me.
Honestly.
I'm a communicator.
Honestly.
I want you to tell me what's going on.
Right.
And I'll keep it real with you.
Exactly. And I think just when we talk about communication and having conversations, I think it's okay to have different viewpoints. It's okay to argue and bicker, but at the end of the day, it needs to come together. Mm. Like, there has to be, all right, listen, you said this, I said this, we end it here. We could leave it at that. We could go our separate ways, but at the end of the day, we're not going to be arguing at the end of this. Like, there has to be a decision where we come together or we just go our separate ways.
Yeah, hold on. My dad's calling me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Keep that thought, though. Hello? Yeah.
So listen, anyways, guys, you know what I mean? How's y'all day going? You know what I mean? I love to put a comment in, you know what I mean? Tell me how y'all doing. Tap in with Stay True, you know what I mean? That's my brand. If you haven't seen it, you know what I mean? Tap in with it. I'll have Chris pop it up on the screen for y'all.
I'll just get it. Yeah, I'll just get it if it comes in. Alright, thanks.
You know what I mean?
What'd you say?
But yeah, I love you guys, you know what I mean?
I'm gonna edit all that shit out, but we were in the middle. Dude, this is actually we should probably cut it now.
Nah, we good.
No, we should cut it now because like the camera battery and all that jazz.
Alright, let's just end it out.
All right, no, wait. We gotta do the outro.
Oh, we're not gonna do the outro. Let's add one more point. Alright, you wanna do the outro?
Yeah, I'll do the outro.
Let's tie it back to the chapter of life. Just
All
real
right,
quick.
go ahead.
So
Please.
listen. Anyways, so when we talk about experience, we talk about personality, we talk about perception, and we talk about the chapter of life that we're being in now.
It all stemmed from that. Yeah.
And when you talk about what do you want to call this chapter of your life, what name do you want to put on it? Well, honestly, when you think about it, how does that chapter tie into your life? What did that chapter do for you? And then you could put a name on it.
Like a whole picture type of deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I were to say what my life is like right now, I would say it's just like classic Polo G song, The Come Up. You know what I mean? It's just classic and it's simply because I'm learning so much.
Absolutely.
At this point in my life, I'm learning stuff every day, and I don't plan on stopping learning ever. Because there's too much information.
Never stop learning.
What happens in the brain is you'll literally, like the neurons and the neurotransmitters and all that stuff, that's basically, your brain is a computer.
It is.
Your brain is a very high-tech computer, but instead of motherboards and chips and all that, it uses neurons and spaces and, all this information, neurotransmitters to get your point across.
Absolutely.
And to make you understand things, right?
Absolutely.
And so with that being said, this is one of the most complex machines that there is.
Absolutely.
And it's something that we don't understand.
I don't think we'll ever fully understand the human body because of how complex the human body is.
Yeah, never. And I don't think anybody really understands. And all this stuff, like, you could give it names, but the only true stuff is the stuff that's nameless. And I actually genuinely, I like that because...
I do like that.
Because it's something that I feel like most people don't really understand. Mm-hmm. I feel like most people don't actually understand the fact that, or at least they don't think about it. I think to put it in simple terms is the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with that being said, I think that'll do it for today's episode.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot in this podcast.
We have covered a whole lot. We might have to cut out some. It's going to be probably 30 minutes or less. I'm not even cutting it out too.
We hope that y'all enjoyed the content. Keep subscribing, keep liking, keep commenting. Let us know what you want to hear. Tune into the next one. We'll see y'all.